Hi, and welcome to the St. Petersburg-Clearwater Film Commission podcast. I believe this is podcast number 9. What are we on now, 9?
Oh, I lost track.
10?
There's so many.
I know. We're so busy knocking out podcasts here. We can't keep track of how many we're doing. So welcome. I'm Tony Armour, Film Commissioner for St. Petersburg-Clearwater, Florida, and this is Lisa Dozois, our Film Commission Manager.
Good morning.
So if you're not familiar with the show, this is just our podcast that we do every couple of weeks talking about all the great things that are happening in St. Pete-Clearwater, all the film projects and all the commercials and digital media and everything that we're doing. We do little tech segments, little interviews with filmmakers, and one of those interviews we have today is with Deon Gibson, who is the writer and director of Home of the Brave, an independent feature that is shooting now in the area. So we'll chat with him in a little bit here. There's a film that's shooting in Tarpon Springs. August 24th through, July 24th to August 17th. Something like that. Something like that's when it's shooting. And it's called Epiphany.
Epiphany,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Well, Lisa, why don't you tell us a little bit about Epiphany?
Oh, well, all of the crew have finally arrived in town. They are just finalizing all of their schedules and getting ready to start rolling on Monday morning. And they're going to be a lot of filming going on the sponge docks in Tarpon Springs and a little bit over at Spring Bayou. And they're going to be out on a boat because it's all, based on...
On Epiphany. I guess, I guess maybe we should explain to people what is Epiphany. Epiphany is this annual event that happens in Tarpon Springs every year. So Tarpon Springs, Florida, here in Pinellas County, actually has the largest Greek population in the entire United States, right here in Pinellas County. And the reason there's such a large Greek population is because many, many years ago, Greeks started coming to this area for sponge diving. And so they were diving for sponges, and it was a huge industry in Tarpon Springs for a really long time. And so now you've got this, this great Greek population that has grown up there. And so every year in January. I believe it is, there is Epiphany, which is a religious celebration. Where I don't want to mess this up. Maybe you know a little better than I do. Can you explain exactly what it is?
No, because
well, here's what I do know. So the Greek Orthodox Church, they have an event where young men, they throw a cross into Spring Bayou, and these young men dive into the bayou, and whoever comes up with the cross is essentially blessed and is supposed to have good fortune for their family and for themselves because of that. And it's a religious celebration. On the Greek Orthodox faith. And I hope I didn't mess that up too badly. I don't want to offend anybody there, but I think that was fairly simple explanation according to my understanding of what it is. So this film is about a young girl who has been raised by her aunt and uncle, and the aunt dies, and now she is trying to reestablish this relationship with her father, who's had a lot of gambling issues and other things throughout his life, depression, and it's just basically a nice little family drama that we're really looking forward to seeing how it turns out. And a couple of sisters, Kula and Katina Sosiadis, I think I pronounced those right, are the filmmakers that wrote and are directing this film. And they used to come here every summer on vacation with their Greek father to Tarpon Springs, and so they decided to write a film about Tarpon Springs and taking place here. So we're excited to have them filming here. We've got another film coming up, actually starting to shoot next week too. Another little indie feature. Lisa, what do we got? What else we got coming?
That is Celebrity Crush, and I wasn't prepared for all that.
Oh, I stumped her. I stumped Lisa with Celebrity Crush. So Celebrity Crush actually stars Oliver Robbins. So Oliver Robbins, as you can see on the screen here, is the little kid from Poltergeist back in 1982 that with the killer clown, and he's attacked by a tree. He had a very bad week on that movie, of being abused by horror characters like clowns and killer trees apparently. But over the last many years, he has become a writer and a director, and he wrote and is directing this film called Celebrity Crush, which is about a guy who starred in this horror film in the 80s and has been going to these Comic-Cons and conventions for a long time, and there is a person that has a celebrity crush on him, and it's a very misery kind of story where he gets, tied up in some kind of underground bunker, and so, a little horror thriller. So we're excited to have that film here. We're going to see if we can get maybe Oliver on in an interview that we can post on our YouTube channel here as well, and we'll see if we can get it in time to drop into this podcast as we film next week. They're going to be kind of busy filming, so but we'll see what we can do to get Oliver. and to get the sisters that are doing Epiphany as well.
That'd be great.
Yeah. So Lisa, what else do we have coming up and going on around here?
Oh yeah, summer is usually kind of a slow time for us, but we are just jamming at the Film Commission office. There's a lot of shoots going on throughout the county. We've got some big ones too. We've got Best Buy coming to St. Pete Beach in a couple weeks to film in a private residence. They're going to just do a commercial about a new audio system, and that's a big deal for us. We've got Blue Water Media, a local production company. They are going to be down at the Sunset Beach Pavilion in Treasure Island, and they will be filming a commercial for KitchenAid, the KitchenAid brand. They're going to do some cooking demonstrations down there. That's a great location, by the way, if you ever need some kind of a covered outdoor space. It's right on the beach, and it's got electricity and everything you need. It just takes a little bit longer to permit, but that's usually not a problem if you give us enough time. We've got Lightwave Media, another local production company. They're going to be filming a music video, and they're going to be all over South County, down at North Shore Park, and along Pasquarel Beach, and in the evening in downtown St. Pete, so that ought to look great when that's all done. We've got some short film, filming some scenes over at Heritage Village, the Living Museum over in Largo. And it's called Honest Abe Productions. I'm not quite sure exactly if it's about Abraham Lincoln, probably, but...
But if it's shooting at Heritage Village, you know, it has that whole historical feel.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be, you know, like Honest Abe Vampire Hunter or something, or if it'll be an actual historical reenactment. We'll see.
And we'll let you all know when we know. And yeah, that's you know, there's just a couple other little things going on, and more permit applications are coming in every day, and keeping us real busy.
Yeah, so there's always something going on. It's one of those things people don't realize how much is actually happening or shooting around the county. You know, you only hear about it if it's a big project like, you know, the Tim Burton film or the Bryan Cranston film, or if you've got something major like that going on. You know, we actually get a ton of reality television.
Yes, we
so
do.
we have the little couple. The little couple is here as well.
Yeah, all summer long they're going to be here filming, mostly in St. Petersburg. They have relocated to the area, the couple themselves, and they're living in St. Petersburg. Maybe we shouldn't say that.
They're somewhere in the area. I don't think it'll be, you know, we're not giving out their address, so it should be okay. St. Petersburg is a big city.
Right.
But the little couple on TLC is shooting their next season here as well.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Well, so as you can see, there's a lot going on here in St.Pete-Clearwater. And coming up next, we're going to sit down and talk with Deon Gibson, writer and director of Home of the Brave. So, Deon Gibson.
Yes, Gibson.
Deon Gibson, writer and director of Home of the Brave.
Home of the Brave,
here with us on the Whatever Show, the St.Pete-Clearwater Film Commission podcast today. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Now, I know it's not, you know, this isn't exactly Jimmy Kimmel.
This is better.
Or
this is
anything.
better.
It's better? Well,
yes,
good.
I live, what, an hour away from you, so I can just drive. I don't have to fly to get here. So, yeah.
Good. Jimmy, you hear that? We're better. We're doing better. So, Home of the Brave is a feature film that you wrote and are directing that's still shooting locally right now. And you guys have been shooting this for a while, for a couple of weeks, or a month even, maybe.
We're about 4 weeks in now.
4 weeks in.
4 or 5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. So you're not shooting like a production schedule where you're like 25 days back to back to back to back with weekends off or anything. You're kind of spacing it out and taking your time to do it. Talk a little bit about that process and why you're doing it that way.
Well, most of our actors, I would say about 80% of them work here in the Tampa, St. Pete-Clearwater area. So it's best to do it like that so we can get everybody on set and they can go back to their 9 to 5s without disrupting that part of it. But and also it allows us to give us a break, because shooting a full-length feature can be stressful. So we get a couple of days off, a couple of days on and things like that. But another thing, it's easier to shoot on the weekends when it comes to staffing everybody, because most people are home on the weekends chilling out anyway, and it's easy to get them on set, rather than take a week off from work. So it works out better for us that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's kind of sort of the MO for a lot of independent filmmaking. And on my first feature film that I did way back in like 2004, we did the same thing. We would shoot on weekends, and then you had that whole week to basically prep for the weekend.
Exactly.
And so everybody could work their 9 to 5s, film on the weekends, and then you could do your pre-production every single week, as you were sort of leading up to it. So
yes, exactly what we're doing.
Yeah. So why don't you tell us actually a little bit about what is Home of the Brave? What's this film about?
Home of the Brave, I started writing it about a year and a half ago, and it evolved from one thing to the next. And finally I said, okay, this is a story I want to tell. But it's a look at police officers, their day-to-day lives, and what they go through, the ups and downs, the temptations and things like that, and also a look at a local community service workers, the things they go through as well. Our lead character, he's a veteran, comes back home after about a year, you know, in the field fighting for the country, comes back home and goes back to work for his after-school program. He's been in this program for years and years. He actually is one of the founders of it. And they get an interaction with a local police officer, and the lead guy, he actually gets shot by one of the police officers. And the crux of the story is the officer who shot the guy working at the community center, it wasn't a racial thing. The officer was, you know, he wasn't as trained as his superior officers and things like that. So we wanted to show how something bad can turn into something good. At the end of the movie, the officer and the community center, they come together at the end of the movie. So the movie is trying to bridge a gap and trying to change the narrative of what we see going on in a lot of these officer-involved shootings. The guy, he wasn't this horrible racist person. The community center guy, he wasn't a horrible person. He wasn't a bad guy or anything like that. It was just two people caught in a terrible situation. So that is the emphasis of the movie.
Yeah, it's a very timely kind of story. So, you know, sort of like you said, you know, not necessarily like ripped from the headlines, sensationalist kind of story, but trying to put a positive spin on this, and you know, maybe do a little bit of a healing process for all this negative media that's out there all the time.
It's a healing process for all the negative media, because I don't think, you know, everybody out there who's involved in these situations, everybody's a bad guy or a racist police officer. I think good people can get, you know, caught up in bad situations all the time, and this movie touches on that.
Good, good. And was this inspired sort of by just current events and things that are happening?
Yeah, current events, a lot of sensationalizing of, you know, what's been going on in the media, you know, people taking the stories and, you know, trying to make money off of these bad stories and things like that, and making the story seem worse than it really is. So this movie, you know, hopefully it, you know, bridges the gap and, you know, brings some healing to this, you know, these situations.
Yeah. So when do you expect to wrap up with your filming?
We should be wrapped, I would say, early September. Then we go into editing. Editing probably take about 2 to 3 months. So we should be done with it at the end of December, early December, something like that.
Good.
Yeah, we should have a first screening, you know, sometime around December, I think.
Sometime end of the year, beginning of 2018.
Yes, that is the goal.
Good. Well, and then what's your goal with the film once it's completed? What are you planning?
First thing, we want to get into some film festivals, but ultimately we want to get it on television and also national distribution. We were lucky enough to get national distribution for our last movie, Encounter, and that one did, you know, far better than we had ever imagined. We got national distribution that went all around the world. It was on television. We sold thousands and thousands of copies. So we're hoping to duplicate that with this movie here.
Good. And so is this your second film then? That last one was your first feature?
Yes, this is our second feature.
Good. Yeah. And so tell us a little bit sort of about kind of like your breaking in. You know, what inspired you to be a filmmaker, and what's the title of the first film you did?
The first film was called An Encounter with the Messiah. It's a faith-based action drama, and that one started off with doing humanitarian work. I went to Africa. I went to Mexico and Haiti, those types of places. But I started off as a photographer, you know, documenting the trips and things like that. And photography was great, but it wasn't as fulfilling as I wanted to be. I wanted to tell stories through the photographs, but it just wasn't hitting the mark for me. So I picked up a video camera and, you know, fell in love with it, and I've been doing it ever since. I think the first trip I went on was Haiti back in 2001, and that kind of inspired, you know, a lot of the filmmaking I do now. Started with documentary, and it, you know, transitioned to, you know, narratives and things like that.
Great, great. Well, speaking of film festivals, there's a good local film festival you probably should enter that you might be able to get into.
Yeah.
So.
Are you talking about the Sunscreen?
Yes, that is correct.
One?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've heard of that one before.
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah, good. I'm sure it'll be good to play locally. Talk about some of your stars for this particular film. Who is in this film, and you know, where did you find your actors and everything that are in this film?
Yeah, we have Wade Williams, who's been in The Investigator. It was a big movie a couple of years ago. He's also a disc jockey as well. He's in there. Kibre Dorsey, he's been in a ton of films in the Bay Area. We also have two bigger celebrities. I can't say their names right now because we haven't signed yet. But we do have two, you know, bigger celebrities who have been in television, major movies and things like that. We're just waiting to sign them before we release their names and things like that. But yeah, we do have local actors who've been in some really big budget, great movies, and we have some upper tier actors who've been in, you know, Hollywood major movies. One guy, he was in actually The Matrix, he was in Superman, Batman versus Superman, he was in that, so yeah, he's been in some
But you
big
can't say
movies.
who it is yet.
Can't say who it is just yet.
But you can start IMDbing and kind of looking up and seeing who was in all those movies, right?
Yes, he was in all those movies, so yeah, he's a great actor. We're just waiting to, you know, finalize all the paperwork, and then we can scream it from the mountaintops if we have him in there.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so if you're going to wrap shooting in September, and you obviously haven't signed these guys yet, that means you haven't started filming with them yet. So
no, not yet.
You have to do all their scenes sort of at the at the end. Now, an interesting thing, you know, and something that a lot of indie filmmakers may or may not know, something that really works well for films that are small budget films where you can't afford, you know, a huge actor, but if you can just bring him in for 2 days, but then shoot enough of their scenes in 2 days that you can sprinkle them throughout the entire movie. Then, so is that your plan?
That is exactly the plan.
Yeah.
We have him in there for 3 days, and we probably about 15, 16 scenes, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna shoot from sun up to sundown. Get as many
You're gonna use those 3 days wisely and jam pack them in there.
Yeah, we're gonna sprinkle it through the movie. So yeah, that is the goal.
Yeah, and that's the secret, you know, in independent filmmaking. You can only pay so much for an actor, so you get them a couple days, and then make sure they're spread throughout the entire thing. So that's good.
Yeah, and we're like I said, we're shooting all of the scenes in just a few days, and we have some of our local actors in scenes with him, so they can use that for their real estate. They were in a scene with this guy, so yeah, it works out for everybody that way.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Well, what have I missed? Anything I haven't asked you about as far as this film goes? It's
been great shooting in this area. At first, we wanted to shoot everything in the Tampa area, but once we got the Deon Film Commission, we got some beautiful locations, especially in Clearwater. We were able to shoot in Clearwater. Yeah. We got a beautiful location there. I remember we shot that this past Saturday. I remember coming across the bridge and seeing the landscape and how amazing it was. And we didn't have a shot like that in the movie, but I went back and shot it. I said, we have to get this in there. You know, because I've been living here now for over a decade, and you kind of take for granted how beautiful it is until you kind of open your eyes again to see what it, it's like from a cinematic, standpoint. But yeah, we had a great time shooting here, and the one of the other locations was awesome and creepy. Was the Eagle Lake location. Yeah. Yeah, so we had a beautiful time shooting in this area. Yeah, Eagle Lake is great. Yeah, yeah. Something I think again, you're shooting in Florida, you're shooting somewhere like this. It doesn't take much to make it look beautiful. You know, you get a couple of good drone shots kind of showing the area. I mean, that was, Bloodline did that. That opening of a Bloodline episode, they just do, here's a couple of drone shots to show you how beautiful it is, and then they get into the nitty-gritty of it. But it really kind of establishes that. And so something I'll tell you now and let other filmmakers know as well, we actually have high-def drone footage that is footage that we give out to filmmakers for free. So if you want some, and we even have it in 4K, up to 4K as well. So if you want some 4K or just HD drone footage for your production, contact the film office. We'll send you a link. You can literally download this drone footage and be able to use whatever you want in your project. So I hope you guys take advantage of the. Yes, we have one of your shots in there from the Skyway Bridge. I wanted to get one of those from the get-go, but hiring a helicopter is about $1 jillion. Yeah. So you guys came in and got that for us. So yeah. Good. See, look how well it's working out. And a little secret too that you can actually do that's actually really cool. There is a drones are the easy way to do a lot of stuff nowadays. But sometimes there are some things you just can't get with a drone because you're not allowed to fly in certain areas, and so you have to have a helicopter. There is a company that operates out of Albert Whitted Airport in St. Pete, and then also out of Clearwater Air Park in Clearwater, and I believe it's just Clearwater Aviation, I think is the name of it. And you can just rent a helicopter for, probably less than $500 for, maybe an hour or something like that, and just get your camera up there, and it'll literally take the doors of the helicopter off for you, and you can just shoot out the doors of the helicopter and get some of that footage that maybe you can't get in certain areas, certain locations, like flying around the Skyway and things like that. So very cool. Very cool. Just another little tip for. We do have a driving shot, because we do have one driving shot that we want to get some aerial photography of, and it's something we can do with a drone. So I may look into that. Yeah, I'm not sure how the driving stuff would work, because you want to follow a car. Yeah, on the Skyway. On the Skyway. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, you would have to coordinate really well with the helicopter to do that. So I'm not going to get involved in that. I'll let you guys figure that out on your own. But it could be a cool shot. It could be a cool shot. Well, good. Well, great. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for being on the thank you for having me. The Whatever show here, and we're looking forward to seeing Home of the Brave. Me too. All right, great. Thank you.
Okay, well, next up here we have Jacob Pierce, who is our creative and digital specialist for Visit St. Pete-Clearwater. Jacob, what are you teaching us today? What kind of knowledge are you throwing our way?
Yeah, so if you tuned into the last podcast, I mentioned at the end that we're going to actually learn a little bit about light painting. So the last segment we did, we talked about the wireless remote and how to use that. So I thought we might just go into what I actually am using it for, and what you can do with light painting, and especially in St. Pete-Clearwater with all like the cool locations that we have here, what you can actually create.
Yeah, you've taken some really cool pictures lately, showcasing light painting and showcasing the destination and everything. So yeah, why don't you just jump right in and tell us how this thing works?
Yeah. So first off, what you're going to need for doing some light painting is your trusty tripod.
I guess before you jump in,
Yeah.
you should maybe explain to the audience what is light painting.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so light painting is, you can see an example here. So you're taking a subject, or you're putting something in the foreground or some kind of cool background, and then you're setting up your tripod and getting a long exposure, and then from that you're creating some kind of shape with light. So you're basically just taking a flashlight, or you have a lume cube or some kind of light source. You could use you could use a cell phone really if you wanted to, if it was bright enough, and do a long exposure photography at night, obviously, or some place in a dark room, and just taking your light and doing all kinds of cool painting with it. And basically, the word painting, I guess, it kind of throws you off because you think like you're painting your house with some light.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a cool term for what you might consider just using light to like expose a dark room. So
yeah, it's a very cool concept, and I think it's something that you're starting to see more online, Instagram, and a lot of other places, and it's just a creative way of it's photography essentially, but doing some different things, like you said, with light and shaping and painting with light. So right. Yeah, show us how you do it.
Yeah, and so another thing too, I watched recently a few light painting videos for commercial real estate. So sometimes you'll see a really beautiful house at night, and it has all these really pretty lights on it, and it's all lit up. And I saw a guy basically take like 60 different pictures, and he just takes his flash and walks around and flashes different corners of the whole house. Huh. And then he goes into Photoshop, layers them all, and removes some of the images, and you basically get a really beautiful image of this home at night. So
really? That's cool.
So yeah, so there's so many different uses to it, even not creatively. Like you could eventually start to expand and use it commercially, and doing some types of images that people would just expect you just set your camera up and took a picture, but you really ended up taking like 60 pictures and layered them all. So yeah, you eventually can move on and do a lot more creative things, and potentially get paid for them. So
everybody likes to get paid. That's good. Yeah.
So what I've been doing mostly is just creating art out of these things. I haven't been getting paid for any of my light painting. I've just been wanting to kind of grow in it and learn a little bit more about it. So it's kind of what I've been doing here with some of these images that you see here in the background.
Yeah, these are some very cool ones. Where's this particular one shot at?
So this one was at Reddington Shores Beach Access. This is the rocks that are there right when you head like right out to the beach. So you just park there, and straight ahead there's some really cool rocks. And the other location, you have the Don Cesar in there, and that's the really cool pink palace that we have.
On St. Pete Beach, yeah.
Yeah, and then right here is Reddington Long Pier. Underneath the pier, it's our almost 100-year-old wooden pier that we have that's there. So you have some really cool locations that you can use and potentially get out there and start shooting in. That's all over the place, really.
Yeah. So how does it work? Tell me what you do and when you're doing it.
Yeah. So to start it off, you need your tripod, obviously, or you need. Sometimes if you really want to get really low and get a reflection, sometimes I'll just put my camera on my shoe or something like that, and I want to get like right in the water.
Or a sandbag, or just something that's stable and low.
Something
basically.
Stable. Yeah. You want your camera to be completely still. If you touch your camera, you go to hit the button and you move your camera just a tiny little bit, you're going to get like a phantom. Yeah. You're going to see your subject move or your background move or the horizon or something like that. So you want it to be completely still, and then you obviously you want to get a remote. We talked last week about the wireless remote, and that's how I was able to capture these images with a wireless remote. I have that in my hand, and I have my light source as well. And so the next thing, you're obviously going to need your camera. You're going to want to set your camera up in either bulb mode, if you have that on your camera, and bulb mode makes it so that you can just hold down your remote and let go whenever you're finished taking or
Now,
painting with
bulb
light.
mode is typically if you have a flash, is generally what it's used for, right? So if you have a flash, is that what bulb mode typically is? Or explain what bulb mode is.
Yeah, so I need to do a little bit more research as to what bulb mode could be used for, like in other uses, but from what I've been using it for is just to keep the shutter open. So you can push down the button, and I'll have it turned on here in the bulb mode. Maybe you might be able to hear it if I get close enough. So you can hear that I've held the button down, and actually some of these remotes have a button where you can slide it up, and you can slide it back down when you're finished taking the picture. So that's mostly what I've been using it for, is to keep the shutter open for as long as possible. And so if you're using bulb mode most of the time during the day, if you take a picture that's 1 second or 2 seconds long, it'll be completely white. It'll be just completely overexposed. So it's really more for that, because a lot of the times when you're taking a picture, it's like 500ths of a second or 250th of a second, where it's like really quick. So you're like leaving the shutter open and bringing all the light back into it.
Which is why you're doing it at night, of course, and then that's why you get that, the great streaky kind of images with the light, because that's what the light looks like to the camera when you're doing that extended exposure. So you do typically 1 second or 2 seconds, depending on how dark it is out?
Right, yeah. A few seconds is really all you need. If you do it a little longer than that, depending on what you have. If you have a statue that you're shooting with, you might be able to paint for 30 seconds and go around them. Or if you have no subject and you just want to like fill a whole field up with light, then you can paint for as long as you want. You can put it on for 30 seconds.
Sure.
And then for that case, you can just change your camera into manual mode. You can have it on for 30 seconds or for 15 seconds or however long that you plan to shoot it for.
Yeah. And so when you're doing those longer exposures like that, obviously, cameras nowadays, the Sonys and the Canon Mark IVs and everything like that, they have an ISO that can go up to like 120,000 because they're saying, well, now you can shoot at night, because you can, but that's for a regular picture. You just want to take a regular picture and it's going to take, a lot of that light, and it'll be noisy. You're going to have a lot of grain to it when you have ISO that high, but something like this, you want your ISO really low, right?
Right. Yeah, so basically I'll shoot at 100 or 400 ISO, like in that range. Sometimes I might need to go up a little bit more, but for the most part I'm sticking around in the lower ISO range, because you don't want to get grain, obviously, and you can capture an image like this and get enough light from your light source that you don't need to get the ISO way up high. And like you said, if you wanted to take an image like of a house completely exposed with your ISO that high, you can. But if you also wanted to paint with light, you could turn it down and add light source to the image, rather than bump your ISO.
So so typically, you're gonna set up your camera, you're gonna set up your tripod, you're gonna get your subject in focus. And what kind of f-stop are you using then for this as well?
I'll shoot as low as I can, 2.8.
Yeah. So you'll be as wide open
right.
as you can, basically, and then the subject just remains perfectly still, because you don't want them to move, because then you'll get motion blur if they're moving around. But again, you could actually maybe do some cool stuff if the subject was the one, moving the light. You would get that motion blur of just their arms moving with the light kind of circling in their arms and stuff. So there's a lot of variations and different things that you can do, right?
Yeah, it'll look like they don't have any arms, like they're just like really blurry arms, but the rest of them is still, which would probably be hard to
sure, because you'd have to remain really still.
Right.
But even if you move your arm just like that, your head is moving.
Yeah, you're moving a little bit, and you're going to get a phantom. So what you can do is you can use a flash, and you can just hit one flash on the subject as they're moving. So if you have like somebody that's doing like glow sticks where they're like spinning those around, you can flash them really quick and also have the long exposure going. So you'll get one shot of them still, and then you'll see all the phantoms around them, but you'll get that one still shot. And one trick that I learned is a lot of flashes have that little test mode on the back where you can test the flash, and you can just pop that off one time on the subject, and you can get them still, and then you'll see all these other crazy lights going on around them.
Sure, and you could always use your cell phone too, and just use your cell phone flash and like boop, and do something. Though granted, that may not be bright enough. It just depends on the distance and everything else. But what it sounds like it boils down to is you just kind of have to experiment a little bit.
Right. Yeah, that's really what it comes down to. That's what I've been doing, just getting out there and just doing it. I've like pretty much filled every single day just going out and shooting with people and just trying to grow at it and get better at it and have more fun with it. And that's really what I've learned is as soon as I did it for like a week or two, I was like, felt like a master of it. Like I'm like kind of getting a lot more experience with it, and then I have now other people like asking me, and I'm kind of teaching them on how to do it too.
That's
So
cool. No, I am excited about going out and starting to do with this myself. I wonder how long I can get my dog to sit still to do some lights painting with my dog. We'll see. I don't think she's going to sit still for me though. So I don't know. Well, maybe I have to hold a little treat and say stay, stay, and she'll sit there and wait. And we have to light paint around her, see if she doesn't get distracted or not. That's an experiment.
Awesome.
We'll see how this turns out. I'll let you know.
That'd be really cool. So yeah, let's do a little bit of light painting and
let's
use you as a subject real quick. And
sure, yeah, let's do this, and then we'll show the audience what it looks like.
all right, cool. So we're gonna cut all the lights off in here because we want it to be completely dark, and we'll cut our TV off, and then we'll do a little painting.
It's gonna be spooky.
So I know I said we were gonna cut the TV off, but we're gonna leave it on so we can have a little bit of light on the side of Tony's face, and then we're also gonna bounce the light with a reflector, and try to fill that in on the right side of his face. So I typically use a wireless remote, but today I brought my wired one, so I'm going to have Tony hold the remote for me while I do the painting behind him. And he's in bulb mode, so he's going to hold it down for as long as the duration of the painting, and then he's going to let go when we're finished painting. So,
and I might give you a little blue steel while we're.
Awesome. So I also mentioned too that you need a light source, so we're using the Lume Cube today. If you want to learn more about the Lume Cube, go back to our first segment, our first podcast. We talk about the Lume Cube, and we also have an unboxing playlist. You can check that out as well. So I'm going to give Tony a little bit of direction. A lot of the times when I have my model shooting, I'll have them tell me they're set. Like that's kind of our word. They just say set whenever they are in a position that they're or a pose or shape whenever they're completely still and not moving. So go ahead and let me know whenever you're ready, Tony.
All right, let me find blue steel here.
All right.
All right, set.
All right, and so one way that I get the light painting is I try to hide behind the subject so that you can't see me, which might be kind of hard because my hair is like a foot long behind me. So I got to tuck behind this little bookcase here, and then I'm gonna turn on my light source, and then I'm going to let Tony know when I'm ready, and then as soon as he hits the shutter, I'm going to start painting. So go for it, Tony. Did you hit it? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, go ahead. All right, cool. Let's do that one more time because I didn't hear when you hit that button. So whenever you're set,
I'm going to lose blue steel because it was hard to hold it for that long.
All right, let me know when you're set.
Set.
All right, go for it. All right, cool. All right, let's see how that looks. Yeah, that looks really good. I like that. See, in one of them, I caught my arm in it, so that's one thing you want to try to avoid. It's really easy. You call it chimping. You want to come back and look in the back of your camera as much as possible, so don't waste a lot of time shooting without checking.
Sure.
And seeing what you've captured.
Yeah, you want to make sure the images look right. And then what you may have to do is go in there and Photoshop out the yourself from painting. But I guess if you wore all black and did your full ninja outfit, you know, that'll help too. Yeah, so we can see a little bit of your arm right there in the picture.
Yeah, like in the back right there.
Yeah.
Not too much.
But overall, that's not too bad.
That looks like it could be a part of the shelf.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, so that one.
Yeah, and you get a little ambient light from the TV and everything as well.
Right. Yeah, so that's one cool way that you can do some portraits too.
Yeah.
There's some really cool photographers in the area actually that do some portraits with light painting, and I'm sure they probably do something like that where they have a light source lighting them, and then there's all kinds of brushes out there too that you can use. That you can go online. There's a website called Light Painting Brushes, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And they sell different kinds. I think in the
really?
last episode we were talking about what light painting when I was talking about the remote, and there was an image that we brought up where the lady had wings. She's sitting in the water, and that's one of the brushes that you can buy. And you can also make them yourself. Yeah. So there's nothing stopping you from.
Yeah, I mean, you get really creative. You think about anything that gives off light, any little thing you can think of that gives off light, because everything will have a different shape and a different texture to it, and the light will have different shapes and textures, and you're just moving those, and it'll give you completely different looks. People use sparklers, and they use steel wool kind of thing. I guess steel wool, you kind of put steel wool on a stick and then just light it on fire, and then just spin it around. It gives you little sparks and everything kind of thing. Yeah, some very cool stuff.
Yeah, and there's those things too that are like the long stringy plastic things, and it has a little light.
Yeah,
on
it has
the
a little
ends.
light diode on the end, like
Yeah.
little LED diodes, and they kind of wavy and stuff.
Right,
You can
yeah.
wave those around and do things.
Those create some really cool effects
Yeah.
too. So there's no limit to what you can create.
Sure.
With this, so
Yeah. When your neighbors come over after you've collected all these weird light things that you're doing, and they wonder what you're doing, you could tell them you're light painting, and they'll look at you like you're crazy.
awesome. So that pretty much wraps it up for me. That was.
Good. Well, that was awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing that. So you know what I'd love to see is I would love to see anybody out there that is doing light painting or that watched this video and is going to go experiment with it a little bit and put some comments in the section here on YouTube and maybe a link to some of the light painting that you've done so we can see some of the stuff that you've done because I think this is just kind of a very cool thing that people are doing nowadays. I've got some ideas, some different stuff that would be cool is almost like light painting but then create like an extended time-lapse video of light painting if you did like a series of stills and stuff like that. I mean, you can get really crazy and really in-depth with it. So whatever you've done out there with your light painting, why don't you share it with us? So I think that wraps up the show for today. So be sure to comment, be sure to like the video, be sure to share this video, be sure to subscribe to our channel. So thanks very much for tuning in to the Whatever Show, and we'll see you next time.